come from, Northern California, where the murder ride is high and we creep right on ya. I come from the land of the bad, but we ever get money and we with that gunplay. Rolling around slow, man, smashing in the block, hitting corners everywhere, man, this shit don't stop. As a kid, gang banging on the streets with a banger on my side, where take out winning. What's good with YouTube? Y'all already know, Big Flocka with a convict's perspective, and I'm smashing, dashing, sliding on through with a whole lot of energy, man. So please hit the like button, comment, support, man, this channel, do all those things, man. Hit that bell notification, hit all, and man, for sure, man, please hit that like button. It does help, guys. So as you can tell, man, we're gonna go into a topic, man, called the 7 basic fundamentals, or the 7 phases of a Soldado's schooling, right? Now, these were created around 1993, and they were drafted pretty much to give like the base foundation of a Nuestra Raza's schooling, their indoctrination process, and it's something that's supposed to be continuously. It's there's no limitation to one's educational capacity, which was stressed within the movement, because things change, the movement must change. So that's why they adapted these basic fundamentals, which goes into, you're going to see 7 different things. Now, when I used to recruit somebody, right, as a Nuestra Raza member, as a structure member, I used to start them off usually with the first phase, of course, which was, of course, I gave them the basic history. I think everybody should already have a little base understanding of the history, but then I started to, basically go over the format with a person first, because I think the format would be the most important part. But you're going to hear me explain everything, right? And this is something that, like I said, as long as one is an Soldado behind the wall structure member, they're going to always have to continuously refer back to this and go over this, basically, and always stay abreast of all new changes, new implementations, as this will always be a reference for a Norteno Soldado to revert back to. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy this video. Today I'm going to talk about the 7 phases or 7 fundamentals of a Nuestra Raza Soldado, of an Ensold, okay? And I think this is key to one's educational indoctrination, and becoming what you would call a seasoned, well-versed, competent, and capable Soldado. Now, through the years, there's been evolutions. Not evolutions, things have evolved, right? And what I mean by evolved is you adapt with the comings and goings of the environment you're in. But the core beliefs of these 7 phase fundamentals will continue. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to go over them. This is basically the expectations that are expected in being an NR Soldado in order for you to become well-versed and continue to grow. You can never, ever master these, because as times change, so will the laws, will the formats, will the dogma, will the teachings, will the expectations, will the procedures, and whatnot. Okay, so here's the 7. We're going to start with number 1. And I'm going to go back to the old school original ones, which all you do is you substitute a name. Nuestra Raza literature, okay, which would consist of this. All known history, which would be a full breakdown of the NF history, a full breakdown of the NR history, and just the basic concept to where you can gravitate and teach a young Northerner or in Soldado the basics of your history. You got to know where you come from to know where you're going. And so that's one of the most key things that you always teach a Soldado. When you're in the county jail and you want to honor the bonds, you know what I'm saying, number 11, and teach in school a young Soldado, you're going to give them the history first, right? Where you come from, what the cause is about. Then you're going to go into security procedure measures, right? So the NR literature would be all history, all formats, all bonds, right? All known, these are basically all known basic concepts that give birth and expectations of what an NR Soldado is. The format is an interesting one, because years before there was ever a the bonds and formats were not always given to anybody. Okay, one time they were just for NR members. And so what they used to do is used to have people that would they would fall under a category called the A1. Now, A1 would be someone who was aspiring to be, they were striving to be a NR member. You know what I mean? There would be a sympathizer, one that would assist the movement and be recognized by the collective. Now, what you would do is in their educational endeavors, right, you would have them basically do the format before you pulled them. And format, our future behind the walls depends largely upon each and every one of us as Nuestra Raza Soldados, or whatever it may be. This is an introduction to the NR struggle,
what your expectations are going to be as a soldado, and how to how to get rid of all those who try to infiltrate your circle, your ranks, and whatnot. Because now your expectations are committed to the people. Becoming an NR member, you're committing to the movement. Okay, so the format, you could use the format and basis in conjunction with your bylaws to file charges as well, if need be. You know what I'm saying? And basically, it gives you an overall sense of responsibility of what you're committing to. So when you do the format, you're going down, you're breaking down each sentence. Or sometimes you use 2 sentences at times, right? And it's going to give you an understanding of what you're committing yourself to, right? Now, the next part would be your bylaws, your bonds. Now, the bonds are, the way I used to school a lot of Northerners and then Soldados is this. Your bonds are your ultimate authority in lieu of there not being one who is a higher authority, which would be an NF member. An NF member or Carnal has jurisdiction to make any decision or stamp any decision that happens within the Norteno collective movement. You know what I'm saying? That's why at times you're not supposed to intervene or there's reasons why some people are not allowed to communicate with other facilities or with multiple Cs unless you are really unless you're a Carnal or you're really well plugged in. Okay, that's to avoid any type of misline of communications. So, in the absence that you're on a yard, say back in the days, you didn't have NF members on the main lines. All of them were in the SHU, or in the county jails. So, say you're at a facility like Avenal, it's the main line, it's active yard, right? Every decision you're going to be making is based upon those bonds. This is not your authority. It's not what you feel, what you think. It's you being the most competent and capable soldado to apply the bonds as they are seen fit, right? And these are your rights. These protect every soldado. You know what I mean? Every infraction or, you know what I'm saying, non-infraction is going to have to be fully investigated. When you deem someone no good, right, you don't just deem them no good just because you can. You have to have a bylaw scripture, a bond that justifies why you're having them removed. In conjunction with a whole outline report that gives you the 5W facts, right, and submit it to a higher authority process. So you make the decision, right? Then afterwards you deal with it afterwards because you're gonna have to answer for that decision either way. So that this held people accountable to make choices. See, for a minute, Northerners were not given these bonds, right? So therefore they couldn't protect themselves. See, they're just as much to protect the people, protect you as they are to protect the people. You know what I'm saying? Therefore, when I used to do a lot of educational exercises, right, in doing the bonds, it's the one area where I tell people there's no gray area to them. You know what I'm saying? They're black and white. And they're done that way in a sequence of events for reasons, you know, because that was one of the biggest controversies that we were having was when they started to give the bonds to Northerners and they changed all the titles and all that was that you had Northerners that were misinterpreting bonds. Like Bond 5, they would misinterpret it. You know what I'm saying? As far as, you know, I don't have to feel unfair to you. No, look what the bond says. It says you acknowledge and respect the authority in charge. I'm the authority in charge. It means you don't feel less of a man because I'm holding rank here because I know what the fuck I'm doing. And that's just sometimes how it would have to be. People didn't misinterpret number 4. Just because you're kicking it with a homeboy or you show more favoritism as far as on materialistic things doesn't mean that that's homeboy favoritism as far as a negative side. You see what I'm saying? People would try to misuse these bonds in formats at times. And a lot of it was just lack of education. So in a Soldado school, you have to really grasp the true concepts of the phase 1, which is the NR literature or Norteno literature, which is, like I said, the history, which goes back to the NF, the format, which is the introduction to the struggle, and then the bonds. Okay, number 2, phase 2, would be NR communications, which would be proper English. As you know, we're always striving. We're getting our thesauruses, we're getting our dictionaries, and some of us at times will mispronounce words. It's not that we can use them in the proper context, but sometimes we don't have the pronunciation right, if you ever notice like that. Homie Hangout brought that up, and it's true. Okay, proper English, proper Spanish, proper Nahua, right? Okay, Nahuatl was just another form that you were expected to learn for communications up in the Bay and Corcoran, as well as Morse code, sign language, and how to establish different codes. You had like the broken valve. You had the where commas, every 2 words would be a fucking sentence. You had the ghostwrite, which was one of the best forms outside of a couple other coded ways I'm gonna teach you guys. What the codes I used to use is this. Me and you are communicating, right? I would keep the communications to basically 20 wordy codes, right? Good, no good, freeze, under investigation, contact the streets, contact the bay, right? Higher authority made the decision, brass, whatever it may be. Hit them with a piece, investigate. But these codes would be in this form or fashion. It'd be a word that only me and you know. Therefore, it couldn't be broken. Like, I could sit there and have a conversation like, yeah, I was at my prima's house. Prima could be fucking all good. You know what I'm saying? Then later on, I could sit there and say, he's cleared, right? Say I say the word, yeah, my prima should be being a bitch lady. That word bitch may mean that they're cleared. You know what I'm saying? So there's different words and ways. It could be anything. Like, I had a taco with fucking extra fucking hot sauce. That could be another coded word. But only you and the other person know this code. And so you may have codes with all kinds of different people. As long as they haven't shown that code with anybody else, you can communicate freely. Like, for instance, in Corcoran, when we'd go on movements, every fucking block had a fucking name, like Sarah, fucking Monica, Maria. And so you would ask someone, hey, who was Aruka? And then you would know based upon them giving you a response. And then there'd be another code in return. You know what I'm saying? I got what's your name, Sensor Saluz? It means like, hey, I got a message coming that way. And sometimes you'd say, oh yeah, fucking, you would basically put their 5x5 out there without putting their CDC number. You basically say, okay, Mark fucking Turtle from Sanho sends his regards to fucking Sarah. You're asking them to run a check on that name. You see what I'm saying? And so that's how the number 2 it would be used. In being part of the Nuestra Raza movement, you were leadership on the yard at times. Therefore, you had to learn how to be civil, diplomatically, and present facts to people when you're dealing with all kinds of different races as well as your own. So the number 2 was a real important one. Okay, the next one. Weaponry, warfare tactics. Okay, weaponry, you're going to have to learn how to make a piece. Metal on metal fucking cuts. Okay, that's off top. You teach every soldado that. You get your fucking zipper and start going to town. Okay, how to make a paper pedazo, how to make a zip gun, how to make a bow and arrow, tomahawks. So be it. I can make a baseball bat out of my fucking towel that will knock you out. How to make a rope out of fucking toilet paper. There's all kinds of different things that you can make. Now, warfare tactics, you have different type of warfare tactics. Art of War is really a key book, but you have to apply it in the confines of your environment. Like cold warfare is one fashion, which is you start to establish different resources that take away from other groups. Like, for instance, if you're on a yard that you've had established pretty good, you want to make sure that all key job positions like laundry, canteen, plumbing, right? You want to make sure you get people in all those slots to where it gives you advantage to do what you got to do on that yard. That's what you call sewing up the yard, right? These are all warfare tactics, psychological warfare, you know what I'm saying? Manipulation. All these things are going to be key to establishing the yard, as well as how to declare war. How do you make use of all your manpower? When is it necessary to declare war? When is it necessary to take a step back? So there'll be times where sometimes maybe you should get off, but you're going to take a step back and try to go about it in the right fashion. Okay, so that's it for weaponry warfare tactics. Number 4, mainline training. Okay, that's a very detailed one. Now, chain of command will change from facility to facility. You could have building securities, you could have block commanders, you can have all this stuff, man. How to establish a COC, how to get to a yard, play the dummy role, how to infiltrate different groups, how to establish it, how to remove all targets. There's a whole long list of things that go into mainline training. And it's one of the key things that you have to sit there and apply it, though, to where the reality of the circumstances. Not every circumstance is going to go with a template that you have. So you teach a soldado that in itself, that sometimes you have to adapt. You know what I'm saying? And as long as everything is within Bond 9 procedures, branch and union, you're going to be okay. Okay, so that's number 4. That one was a key one because I used to have to school a lot of people like, look, this may be a template that you're looking at, but sometimes you have to adapt. Sometimes titles and labels and all that is kind of irrelevant. You're not going to be on a yard where you have 100 people and you could have 20 people filling in positions. You may be on a yard where you have 30 and you only have 4 people you want within that circle. You know what I'm saying? Which is, you always want to have a building security, a yard security, an OA, and at least an NT. But then when it's bigger though, like for instance, San Quentin, you know, DVI, you'd have a RC, RSD, RAs. Then all the blocks would have RAs. But basically the RC would be the overall authority, you know. And that's number, that would be number, like I said, that's number 4. Now, number 5, right, would be there's going to be 3 different things when we get to there. I know which one the last one is, but I get 5 and 6 mixed up. But 5, I'm going to sit there and go with character analysis and recruitment of soldados. How to recruit an NR member. How to have one as a prospect. What education you give them. And a lot of times what I used to do is I used to give them basically a COC position, like a TS, right? Or a squad member on the yard, as far as a hit squad. And I would do their education and see where they're at. And I would evaluate how they conduct themselves. Not just in front of me, but with other people. Because sometimes because of your status or standings, people will kiss your fucking ass on the yard because they want to be something. But then outside of that, they'll act a little bit different. So I always wanted to find those that were down to earth and real, that were hungry, but were also sitting there trying to live up to those standards. Because recruiting people is a big responsibility. I've recruited a lot of people. Some of them have became C's now today. And I've, you know, been their sponsors and whatnot. Now, back then, you had to have a minimum of 5 years as a head mano. And you have to have preferably 2 sponsors, and then it had to be stamped by a C. Unless you had a channel. You know what I'm saying? Like, I recruited a few people that, when I wasn't bro, I recruited a few people to where all I had to do was submit their name. And it would get stamped. You know what I'm saying? And so I pretty much would stamp their status there on the spot. Because I was given jurisdiction to do that by those I was in contact with. But also recruitment of manpower that may be needed to establish your household. That could be used if you were going to politic on the yard, overtake a leadership. These are all things you have to consider. Okay? And that's basically character analysis. You're reading body language, actions. You're doing cross-reference. You're looking at everything. You know what I'm saying? You may run a check all the way to their county to find out what you know about this person before you decide to fucking put them up to be proposed for membership. Okay? Now, number 6. Simple. Legal law. Now, as the system changes, so much the Pente must adapt. Now, the struggle is about maintaining equality for all and fighting all injustices. Therefore, we have to be abreast of all new, Department of Operations Manual, their implementations, Title 15, new strategies that they're using to get people on gang enhancements, whatever it may be. We have to study it. Validation purposes, how to get through the validation when they had the Valdivia, stuff for the parole, you know, the Romero motions, all that stuff, man. You continue to sit there and study law because it's never going to be what it was yesterday. There's always new fucking things that have to be shepherdized and you to be abreast of. And that's just for you, your own awareness, so you know what's going on around you. Everything is based on being informed, right? Once you're informed, you're aware, therefore you can secure yourself, right? Now the final one, number 7. We're almost done, guys. This is going to be street concepts or street functions. It depends upon who you are. Now, if it's street concepts, you're going to be given basic topics about how to adapt and be out there on parole and how to succeed with your life. You know, how to get a good job, how to go for an interview, how to get parole off your back. Now, if it's street functions, you're either going to have a carnal that's going to overtake those educational endeavors or a seasoned and soldado that's functioned on the streets. And that's going to go into the expectations of functioning out there. Back then, we had a probation period, monthly quotas, percentages, and you're going to learn a little bit more about the intricate details of NF street functions. So like I said, it depends what, arena you're deciding to go upon. It was not mandatory for you to function back then. Now things have kind of changed. You don't have to function, but you kind of have to assist from what I'm being told, man. So these are what you call the 7 phases, 7 fundamentals, and they're forever going to change, man. But the ideologies remain. You know what I'm saying? Forever forward. Advancement demands change. These are key components to the lucha of an NR Soldado. And like I've always said, these teachings are positive. They could be very aspiring. They could be inspirational. But it's always the application of those soldados who are filling in those positions, whether they hold people at a higher standards in themselves or if they're in it just for themselves. With that said, Convict's Perspective, it's your boy Flacco. I'm out.
Come from Northern California where the murder rate is high and we creep right on ya. I come from the land of the bad, but we ever get money and we with that gunplay. I come from Northern California where the murder rate is high and we creep right on ya. I come from the land of the bad, but we ever get get money and we with that gunplay. I come